When a car undergoes a facelift, it's usually a huge improvement. The manufacturer has the opportunity to take a car and make it fresh and exciting again. I've got to say though, I think this might be the first time I've ever seen a facelift where they've potentially made everything worse. This is the Mercedes CLA facelift. Now, not much has changed on the car from the outside, but if I take you inside, you'll see they've actually changed quite a bit. So the first thing you'll notice when you get in the car is they've completely removed the armrest and the touchpad here. They've got this weird sort of tray here and it's really shallow, so I'm not really sure what you'd put in it. It just looks a bit odd. We used to have lots of useful buttons down here as well. You'd have one for the car settings, one to instantly bring up the radio, and if you wanted to bring the sat nav up, you just press the button here and it pops straight up. But now we just have 3 buttons. We've got the drive mode select button, the volume button, and then the parking assist button. They've all gone. Now, these buttons were incredibly useful, and not having them I found incredibly difficult while driving because I'm used to them. So normally you just press the map button down here if you wanted to bring up the sat nav, but now you have to press the home button on the steering wheel and then go through the menu to find the icon for the map and then press map. Imagine how distracting that is. Something else I noticed is the drive mode select is now a single button. It used to be this really handy toggle switch. You could go up and down through the drive modes, which meant you didn't have to go through every single drive mode to get back into comfort. So now, if you're in comfort mode and you just want to flick it into sport, and then you want to go back into comfort mode, you're going to have to click it like 5 times in a CLA45s, for example, to get all the way back to comfort mode. Can you imagine while driving how uncomfortable that's going to be? The gearbox is going to be going crazy because it's going to be going from comfort all through the drive modes. Why can't we just have the toggle switch? It was so helpful. Now, this is something I've covered on my channel with modern Mercedes already, and that is these new touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel. And I've got to be honest, guys, they really aren't very good. Now, I'm sure they're much better once you get used to them and develop some muscle memory, but for me, the old ones were just so much better. To increase the volume on the stereo, for example, you have this little touchpad here. It's kind of like half button, half touchpad. It's a bit weird and it doesn't function as well as, say, a touchscreen on your phone. I mean, there's been times where I've gone to increase the volume slightly and I've slipped and the volume has just gone to max and scared me. Now, this is an odd one, but I've noticed they've changed the seatbelt too. This bit on the end here just feels much lighter and much cheaper. I know, I'm really nitpicking here, but it just seems strange for them to change something like this, and the old one is definitely nicer in your hand. Being a bit more positive now about this facelift, you do get the new version of MBUX and it looks great. One downside though, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we've lost a lot of the useful buttons down here, so it is more difficult to use. You're kind of forced to use the steering wheel more, which is bad news because, as I said, the buttons on this steering wheel are also more difficult than the previous one. So the new MBUX is a great system, but again, I prefer the full setup of the older model. In the facelift, you also get a completely different digital dash. Now, I'm kind of up and down. I can't decide if I like it or not. And the reason is, you can't customize it as much as the previous one. Now, don't get me wrong, you can customize it. If you go through the menu here, there is lots of different pre-made designs here that you can choose from. But what I liked about the previous one is you could choose a design and then you could change it exactly how you wanted. So for example, you could have the 3 sections here. So the first section you could scroll through and change, the middle section you could scroll through and change, and then on the right you could scroll through and change as well. Whereas in the new one, you can only scroll through and change in the middle, which is a bit disappointing. Something that stood out to me as well when I put the car in reverse for the first time is the reverse camera. For some reason, it's changed and it looks way worse than the old one. It looks like a downgrade. I mean, rather than tell you, let me show you. Here's the reverse camera in my car. A nice clear picture with minimal distortion. Now here's me performing the same maneuver with the facelift camera. Just look at how unclear this is now compared to the previous one. It gets so distorted here. I think the old one is much easier to use. Here they are both side by side, so you can see how distorted and less clear the new one is. It's not the worst backup camera, but the old one was much better in my opinion, and I have no idea why they changed it. Now, I am a huge Mercedes fan, and although I've been quite negative in this video, this is still a fantastic car. The A-Class and the CLA are a great way to get you into a Mercedes Benz. The problem I have is I don't think this facelift version is better at all. The facelift is supposed to be the ultimate version of the car. It's when the manufacturers have had years of experience and they go back and they make all the final tweaks to make it perfect. Now, even though it's a fantastic car and a great choice if you want to get into a Mercedes A or CLA class, I just think the older one's better. And that's something that rarely happens with a facelift. So guys, that is the facelift CLA. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's just not as good as the old one in my opinion. But hey, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more content on these cars, Mercedes, and just lots of fun stuff, hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.